Good morning. So this is my stand-in until I start the Remain Undefinable podcast again. I want to build the community on undefinable living, and it's something we're going to be talking about today because it's applying too much pressure in all these different areas that you're trying to achieve or things you're trying to do. And for me, having a third concept to my business and the current things that I'm doing is just a little bit too much. So the main thing I want to do is build my community, my undefinable community, and I'm going to keep it all on the Remain Undefinable for the time being. The Undefinable Living for the time being, and then grow to my podcast. But this is good because we're going to be doing shorter, sweeter. That's shorter, more to the point chats, which is going to be really good for me because it gets me to stay on point, which is with a neurodivergent brain. We're very good at coming away from that, or ADHD brain. So let's get more to the point now before I come off again. So in the mornings at the moment, I've been waking up feeling extremely inspirational with these thoughts in my head, and I just have to write them down. So I keep now a book near my bed. As soon as I wake up, I journal what I'm thinking, I journal what I'm feeling, because I do feel like as I'm sleeping at the moment, the journey I'm currently meant to be on in myself and the discomfort that I've been feeling a lot recently this year. I just feel like I'm on a real healing journey, and there's a lot of this and a lot of this. And sometimes when I go into this, it's really hard to come back out. And I just feel like I'm in a real hole in myself, and nothing I do is good enough, and nothing I am trying to do is going to be good enough. So that's something I wanted to touch on today because I think a lot of people will resonate with that. And I made a few notes. Also wanted to touch on this new book that I'm reading, which is called This Is Meant to Find You When You Needed It the Most. It did find me when I needed it the most, if I'm being 100% honest. But the notes I've taken from my journal this morning, actually when I was journaling, I found myself welling up and getting choked, because this is the whole point in journaling. It changes negative emotions into kinder, more compassionate ways of looking at them, and being kinder to yourself, I think, is what it does for me anyway. So the whole journal this morning was about slowing down and realising that the moments in between your accomplishments, what you achieve, what you're going through, and the transition periods into the next step. For me, slowing down makes me feel not good enough. Slowing down makes me feel like I'm not accomplishing, makes me feel like a failure, which is absolutely ridiculous when I think about it and I say it out loud. Slowing down just makes me feel uncomfortable, and that's bizarre. It's crazy because then moments are moments to sit back, feel grateful, get creative with the next step, start stepping into more of who you're becoming rather than what you need to have. I think I talk about a lot of the time not being defined by the things you do, and that's the whole thing about undefinable. It's not being defined by what you've achieved, what you're trying to achieve, who's in your life, who's not in your life. It's just being defined in who you're becoming. And I think the ironic thing about that is, and I know, is that sitting in who we are now to become who we want to be and the things we want to achieve is uncomfortable, because it's about bridging the gap. It's about understanding that you're here now and doing what needs to be done in the moment to be there, but also knowing that it has to be done in moments of stillness, and that's where we feel uncomfortable. And there's a note here I've made, is I talk about being defined by things we do, yet I'm here struggling to grasp the concept of who I am without all that I do and all that I achieve. And that's the bit when I wrote that, and I get welled up now, is because it's such a void that feels so uncomfortable, not feeling enough. And it's crazy because you are enough in all that you just are. and all that you have accomplished and all that you're desiring to accomplish. You are enough. It's not about what comes into your life and what's come into your life or what leaves. I think what leaves can often leave us feeling even more worthless and not good enough. And I think that for me was a big point in my journaling this morning. Love asks you to slow down. It asks you to be more present. It asks you to take in the breeze. It asks you to take in the moments and be completely connected in that moment. Fear gets you to speed up. It gets you to form attachments. It gets you to form addictions. It gets you to form unhealthy habits, cycles, patterns. And it never allows you to have that compassion with yourself and that empathy and that understanding and that kindness. I used to say I would run back when I was younger and I didn't have the self-awareness I have now. I would go out on runs until I literally collapsed on the floor at the end, and then I'd lay and smile. It's a bit like the Joker, sadistic, because I would be so overwhelmed with the pain of that run that I would have a high and a dopamine high. But I would forget the emotions that I was feeling before that, if that makes sense. So I didn't have to feel them because I've just beat them. I've just beat myself up almost to not feel them, to not give myself the compassion in them, which is bizarre. And there's something I've learned as I've got older, that I can't keep doing that, and I need to sit in the feelings and understand them, be kind to myself so that I can have that in the relationships with the people in my life as well. Love asks you to double down on your self-awareness so that you can show up as the most compassionate version of yourself. So I've just touched on that. Love does ask you to double down rather than going out and runs till you kill yourself. You need to double down on your journaling, on your self-awareness tools and your methods and whatever works for you and the strategies that are going to get you back feeling good. But it's also very important, which I've been telling myself recently, that you learn that it's okay to not feel okay. You can't always feel amazing. I tell you what, if you're feeling really low, that you don't want to get out of bed, but you're still getting out of bed, getting down, making your healthy breakfast, doing your healthy things, doing the healthy habits, going to the gym, even though your head's out the gym, you're still doing the training sessions, you're still keeping those routines and those habits with everything in your life, you are a strong motherfucker. And you need to give yourself a bit more credit, because even though you're feeling shit, you're still doing everything it takes every day to feel good and work on yourself and build the tools. You're not succumbing to your faults. You're not succumbing to who you think you are. You're not succumbing to that negative feeling and voice that's trying to keep you stuck and digging a hole that you can climb into and just hide away. So well done if you're doing that, because it's something I've learned to say to myself a bit more. No matter how I've been feeling this year, I've got shit done. And I've kept moving forwards, no matter how low and how shit I've felt in times, which has been a lot. There's been a lot of heartbreak this year, but there's also been a lot of blessings. But I still keep doing what I need to do. And I think that's extremely... Stop waiting for someone else to say well done. Stop waiting for someone else to pat you on the back and do it yourself. Okay? Love is a commitment to the growth journey of your mindset and your life and your relationships. If you're stuck in a fixed mindset, you're constantly going to think things are black and white, and you're never going to be able to compromise and open yourself up to having a different perspective and a different understanding. If you have a fixed mindset, everything is everyone else's fault. Everything is a problem somewhere else. It's never within you. So I think make sure that your relationships are growth relationships, friendships, lovers. If there's one constantly pointing the finger, telling you where you're going wrong and never really working on themselves, it's a very fixed mindset, and they're not opening themselves to understanding and loving you in the forms that you're coming in. Because we as humans, we will come in all forms. As humans, we're gonna be in our worst form, we're gonna be in our good form, we're gonna be in our not so positive form. There's going to be all different forms, and if you are not loved in your relationships and your relationships do not allow you to go through, to grow through what you're going through, then they're not allowing space for healing and change. And they're not allowing you to be as real as you are and as authentic and true as you are. They're trying to have you in a way that fits their life and their reality and doesn't surface their inner issues, which has nothing to do with you. Let's touch on the book that I'm reading. This was meant to find you when you needed it the most. I tell you what, when I found this book, the title just was so true, because everything in this book... I'm going to read 2 pages that I've actually bookmarked. It's okay to feel whatever you are feeling. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to move forwards. And when you're moving forwards, it's okay to not feel good. But if you're moving forwards and making the positive changes for yourself and breaking cycles, whether you feel uncomfortable doing it, you're being there for yourself. You're showing up for yourself. And a lot of people can't do that. So again, pat on the back. Your past does not define you. Your pain does not define you. It can, if you let it. And pain is fuel. I strongly believe that it's fueled me to everything I've achieved in my life to this point. But as I'm getting older, I'm learning that there's an element of self-destruct and self-sabotage within using that pain as fuel and not allowing myself to be compassionate, feel my emotions and create and craft a little bit more self-awareness. Let's read the other page that I've highlighted. Deception. We often think we're being deceived by others when the real deceiver is ourselves. That's not in the book, I just said that. Quite proud of that. Be kind to your mind. You were not born with the darkest and most difficult thoughts that you have about yourself. These thoughts often arise by the actions of those who do not deserve your love. Replay that bit. If we try to navigate the world with these unhelpful thoughts at the forefront of our minds, eventually we begin to believe them and allow them to consume us and redirect us from our true potential. Stop deceiving your own mind and stop hurting your own heart. I love this book. Honestly, it's helping me day in, day out. I'm getting goosebumps reading it, because what we can feel and how we can transform our mind and how we can create sadness into how we sit in sadness when it can be growth. Like, sadness is a messenger. Why are we feeling sad? What's going on? How can we step out of that? How can we remove ourselves from that? Honestly, healing and growth is a tough journey, and the moment you step into it, it's the journey of becoming. It's the journey of being undefined. It's the journey of remaining undefinable. And when I started this brand, I didn't quite understand the concept. I did get why I was called the undefinable. It was that nothing in my past had defined me, and I always had grace in my future going forwards. But when I labelled myself the undefinable in my whole brand and created this community out of it, it was more about, I just knew the pinnacle of the first point. I didn't actually know how deep it went for me until I've started going deeper and deeper, deeper. And as I said, as I evolve, my brand evolves always. And now being undefinable is so much more. And this brand, I can't wait for it to grow with everything that I'm currently committing to and going through. And, you know, this year for me personally has been extremely, extremely challenging. And I've made some really strong steps that I've never been able to do for myself in the past. And it's just, for me, I'm learning to slow down now. You know, I used to work every hour under the sun. And when I say work, I still work a lot. But I also sit back and enjoy the time that I have and the time that I've created with my career to to be more free and have more free time to create and accomplish things. Whereas before it was like, oh, I've got 4 free hours in the day. What should I do? Let's take on more work that I don't need. And I'll just work myself into the ground till I burn out. And this year I started to say no. Started to say no to things. I started to step back. I started to cut out things that I didn't need, relationships, work, things that weren't aligning with where I'm going. I started to cut it out to allow more things to come in. And you have to have that confidence to do that. And it takes time and self-awareness. And just know that slowing down does not mean you're not worthy. Slowing down does not mean you're a failure. Having moments of stillness and being able to sit within them is huge. And the more I see peaceful people, I've always looked at someone so in their peace and in the moments. They're not stressing about what they're doing next. They're not like, oh, I need to do this. They're just at peace. They're present. And I've longed for that. And I've always wondered how some people it comes easily. They don't have everyone's brain is different. So you have to learn about yours and you have to understand it and you have to learn and do what works for you and stop trying to fit the mold of whatever you're in or doing, because you can do things differently and do it for you and the right way for you. Have a lovely day and remain undefinable. In the process of becoming is so important to remain undefined. Don't let who you think you are define you. Don't let your past define you. Don't let what's left you define you. You defined you from this moment onwards.